Hello, my name is Mike, and this is TheBoredCyborg. Welcome back to yet another episode. Today I am talking about my Criterion Collection. My Criterion mostly Blu-ray collection. I believe I have one DVD. I will disclaim and say that there may be another DVD or two that I forgot, maybe even a Blu-ray that I just looked over. I looked over my collection a few times, but didn't want to waste too much time doing that. I definitely got the vast majority of them. They're all right here next to me. We're going to jump right into them. Now, the thing is, I haven't seen too many of these films, I gotta be honest, so I might not have too much to say about them, but this is more of a showing off the collection kind of thing. I picked up tons of these when I used to work at a huge bookstore in Raleigh called Ed McKay, which is no longer there. I've talked about it in the past, but I used to get these with trade credit, and I would almost pick up any one that came in. Now, a couple years ago, I had to sell off my Zatoichi set, which breaks my heart, my Lone Wolf and Cub set, and my Guillermo del Toro set. So those are three gaping holes in my Criterion Blu-ray collection, and I once owned them, so it drives me crazy, but I went through a rough time a couple years ago, guys, before I started the show, and I had to make a little bit of money, and that was quick money. I know Zatoichi is kind of out of print now. I think they'll probably print it again, but it's sad because that was one of my prized possessions. It is no longer in the collection, but one day, when I have the money to do so, I will splurge on it, regardless of the price. So, these are in no particular order. You know me. I think I do have like a horror stack, but I'm just going to dig into them the way that I piled them up. So, the first one up is a film I have seen. The Seventh Seal. Ingmar Bergman from 1957 in black and white. This is a great movie with Max von Sydow's character who has a chess game with the devil, or with death, I should say. And it's been a while since I've seen it, but I believe von Sydow's character plays sort of a disillusioned war hero or army guy. What's it say on the back? Yeah, a knight who was battling in the Crusades. That's right. Okay, it's kind of coming back to me. And it's sort of him navigating this surreal environment, and it's very dreamlike, and is very allegorical, very Faustian even at points, and it's just a great film that I haven't seen since I was a teenager, but I really enjoyed it when I did see it. That is The Seventh Seal. I'm not going to, spend too much time on these movies, obviously, because there's a bunch of them. Next up is another Ingmar Bergman film, The Magician. Now, I do know that there is a Criterion Ingmar Bergman set, which I'd love to own. Maybe when I have a little bit of extra money, I could sell off the ones I do have. I actually have a couple of his films here, like The Passion of Anna and Shame. So I might be able to sell all those and get the Ingmar Bergman Blu-ray Criterion set for a decent price. I'd love to own that because I love Seventh Seal, the only film of his that I've seen. And as a film collector, that just needs to be in the collection, right? But this is The Magician, Ansiktet, 1958. Don't know anything about this, guys. How do you guys like this one? Have you seen it? The Magician. Next up, we have a film that I have seen, Days of Heaven. I believe the only Terrence Malick film that I've seen, and this was a visual poetry piece of a movie. It was my introduction to him, and I was blown away with the visuals of this film and the pacing. It's a very slow movie, but every shot you sort of soak into, and you really are able to absorb what Malick is trying to purvey through his images. And he's a very visual director, as a lot of you probably know. I really enjoyed this film, Days of Heaven. Like I said, guys, not going to get too deep into any of these. The Royal Tenenbaums. Those of you who watch my Thrifting for Movies videos probably saw that I found this at Restore for $1 on Criterion Blu-ray, which is incredible. I do remember enjoying this film back in the day. It was the first Wes Anderson film I think I had seen, and it's got an incredible cast. Bill Murray to Gene Hackman and a whole bunch of other people. A lot of his mainstays, but I do remember enjoying this, sort of a New York family epic comedy with a lot of great moments. It's a good film from 2001. My favorite Anderson film as of right now is Grand Budapest Hotel. It's one of my favorite films of all time. I need to see more Wes Anderson movies, but the ones I have seen, I really do enjoy. That reminds me That reminds me. Uno momento. Oh, where are you? Okay, well, never mind. Looks like I don't have Life Aquatic. I could have sworn I did, but I don't. Anyway, moving on. Next up, we have The Repo Man. Repo Man. Directed by Alex Cox. Yep, in 1984. This is a film that I have seen. A super weird, punky film from the 80s that I really enjoyed the first time around. There's some weird... This gets into some odd territory with sci-fi. It's a comedy. It's kind of an adventure flick with Emilio Estevez. Is that right? Yeah, Emilio Estevez and Harry Dean Stanton, who play Repo Men. But there's a lot more weird shit going on than just them repossessing vehicles. That is The Repo Man. I love this cover. This is one of my favorite Criterion covers here. Oh, I'm so glad to own this. Look at the artwork. God. Gotta love Criterion. I'm not even talking about all the great special features and just the wonderful work they do with their releases. That is Repo Man. Next up, it's a Mad World, which I've yet to see, and is one of my favorite YouTubers, somebody I've been following since like 04, 05. That's James the Nintendo Nerd, James Rolfe, one of my main inspirations for doing this YouTube channel, doing this show. It is his favorite film of all time. Yes, his favorite film of all time. And I've yet to see it, but that's mostly because I usually don't have like 5 hours to sit down and watch a movie. I know like the director's cut or whatever it's called, it's got a bunch of different cuts. 197-minute extended version of the film, which is just bananas, over 3 hours. I guess the regular cut is almost 3 hours, but it's a mad world. This is sort of the start of that genre with like Cannonball Run and the Gumball Rally and the Great Race, where it's just a giant race with a myriad of different quirky characters. Rat Race, which is one of my favorites. Saw that in theaters a couple times back in the day with my pops and friends. Rat Race is awesome. But it wouldn't be a movie without It's a Mad World. Incredible cast here. Everybody, the who's who of 50s and 60s actors. I definitely got to sit down one afternoon and check out It's a Mad Mickelson world. Next up is one that I have not seen. I Married a Witch. Can any of you relate? I've never seen this movie. 1942, black and white. I don't think it's very horror. I think it's more of a comedy. I don't know if I'm sure it has some like fantasy elements. But it came into the old bookstore and I was like, I Married a Witch on Criterion. Sounds like something I need to own in the collection. And so I picked it up. Keep in mind, a lot of these movies, when they came into the store, were only priced at like 10 to 15 bucks, I'd say, on Blu-ray for our used price, which is amazing. Next up is The Gold Rush. The Gold Rush, which I have not seen. Chaplin film I have not seen. I've only seen a couple Chaplin films, Modern Times being one of them. I've seen another one. Can't think of it. Anyway, The Gold Rush. Chaplin, 1942. Love Chaplin's work of what I've seen. The two movies that I have seen, I think he was a genius. I'm more of a Buster Keaton kind of guy, I guess, but I think both are marvelous to watch. Both are infinitely talented. I just like Buster Keaton a little bit more. You know, he's more action-oriented, I'll say. Maybe not. They were both doing a lot of weird, fun stuff with physical humor. So, The Gold Rush. Still need to check this one out. Dreams, Akira Kurosawa. This one I have yet to see. This is one of the films that Kurosawa did in the twilight of his career. And there's another big name attached to this, and I believe Ishiro Honda, it doesn't say on the back, but I believe Ishiro Honda helped Kurosawa write this film. Ishiro Honda did Gojira. He is the creator of Godzilla and a lot of the Godzilla films from back in the day, and a lot of kaiju films, that even like things like The Mysterians, War of the Gargantuans, Rodan, Masura, just countless movies. He's one of my favorite directors of all time. I believe he helped Kurosawa write this movie, Dreams. Have yet to see it though. It's based on Kurosawa's dreams. It's like a short story anthology, all based on dreams that he had, which is such a cool idea. Great cast, and Martin Scorsese's even acting in one of these sequences. Dreams. Awesome. Next up is one of those like generic Criterion Collection releases, like, I don't know, like Chasing Amy. Maybe some of you guys know more info about what makes these so different. Like, why aren't they in a Criterion case? You know, but either way, Curious Case of Benjamin Button is one I saw in theaters. I was a huge David Fincher fan, and we saw this on opening day, me and a bunch of buddies, and they were weirded out by it. I really loved it, though, and I think moving forward, I'll still really enjoy this very odd fable about a man who ages backwards. So he starts out an old man and becomes a baby by the end. He ages backwards. And it's based on a story by F. Scott Fitzgerald, which I've yet to read. I do own that story. I'd like to read it. But I really like this movie. Dark, sort of earthy tones like David Fincher knows how to shoot. And very interesting fable and allegory about aging and enjoying life while you can. Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Next up is Bamboozled. This is a recent addition to the collection. Sold off my DVD version and almost fully funded this. I think I came out of pocket like $5 or something like that. Bamboozled, Spike Lee film about, I think it's Keenan Ivory Wayans. Is he in that? Or Damon Wayans, who is a struggling like television producer who decides to do like a minstrel show sort of show. And it starts to gain popularity. It's a big satire. It's a big commentary on all sorts of things that have to do with being African American in this country, just like only Spike Lee could do. I can't wait to sit down and watch this movie. We have World on a Wire. This one's kind of cool. This is a TV miniseries by Rainer Werner Fassbender, not Michael Fassbender. From 1973, what do we got? Obviously a German film. It says with dashes of Kubrick, Vonnegut, and Philip K. Dick. It's sort of a cyberpunk-ish sort of story from what I've heard. And yeah, I don't know much about this, guys. World on a Wire. If you guys have seen this and could recommend it, please do so. Moving on. Oh, one of my favorites. One of Gilliam's best. Time Bandits, a film that just makes you feel like a kid. I didn't see this movie until my teens. I didn't grow up with it. Somehow, my father never showed me this one. I feel like this is a film he would have loved. And I'm sure he did, but we never sat down and watched it together. But it's about a group of little people and a young boy who go through who time travel through all these periods, stealing loot from different time periods. And it's just a Gilliam-esque film through and through. It's so quirky, it's so imaginative, it's so much fun and adventurous. That is Time Bandits. Another one I need to own on Criterion Blu-ray is Brazil. I am so ashamed that I don't own that movie in any facet. I need that movie on Criterion Blu-ray. I love that movie and I need to rewatch it. Robinson Crusoe on Mars. Here's another one I found at a flea market for $1. That was before I started filming. I believe that was before I started filming my thrifting for videos, but I found this at a thrift store, brand new sealed for $1 freaking dollar. It's amazing finding Criterion movies at pawn shops and thrift shops. It doesn't happen often, but it happens on occasion. That is Robinson Crusoe on Mars. I have seen this film. It's just that, Robinson Crusoe on Mars. It's got a monkey. It's got great science fiction, very 60s science fiction set design and special effects. It is awesome. It's just a fun adventure movie through and through. Very cool. Robinson Crusoe on Mars. Stagecoach. I have seen. It's one of the few John Wayne films I've seen. Really love this movie. This is John Ford, right? Yep, John Ford. A spectacular chase sequence at the end of this film that is hard for me to watch, admittedly. It's quite an achievement, but it's hard for me to watch because a lot of horses are being hurt and injured for the sake of the movie. I know a lot of you will disagree with that or whatever, but I can't get down with it. I know you, Tamar, know what I mean. My friend Tamar, who watches the videos. Stagecoach is still quite an achievement by John Ford and John Wayne, who is a side role in this, and I really do enjoy this movie. we have Stalker, which is another newer addition to the collection. I saw this movie once, and it was a very audiovisual experience for me, and I don't remember much of the story. I definitely need to rewatch this 1979 sci-fi classic to see if it's something that I fall in love with. I think it may be. It's very otherworldly. It's very alien. And I can't wait to watch this. Who directed? That's right. Tarkovsky, Andrei Tarkovsky. Russian film, I believe. Can't wait to check this out again. Next up, I'm just going to get this out of the way. Gojira! This doesn't fit on the frame, does it? Let's just hold it up. Guys, you all know the gargantuan behemoth of a Godzilla set that Criterion put out that showcases the entire Showa era of Godzilla. Everything from the original... I want to show you guys this. I've showed it off in a video. Everything from the original Godzilla to Terror of Mechagodzilla. Look at the artwork. All independent. All unique depending on the film. It's got an entire booklet. All Monsters Attack. Like I said, all unique independent artists here. Incredible. And then, of course, you have the discs. How glorious and how fitting for the biggest Criterion Collection box set to be Godzilla. I think they did that on purpose. A lot of people complain about the format size here, but not me. I love it. I found a spot for it on my shelf, on the top shelf, sort of behind a bunch of Blu-rays, and it towers over them just like Godzilla would. I love this set. It is glorious. It is beautiful. It is Gojira! Next up, guys, we've got a stack of horror here, and we have Vampire. I think I own the vast majority of Criterion horror films, to be quite honest. I think there's a few that I still need to own, like Les Diaboliques, or Diabolique, I forgot the title of that movie, but which some people don't even consider horror. There are a few that sort of straddle the line between horror and thriller kind of thing, but Vampire, Carl Theodor Dreyer, have yet to see this, have yet to even open it, and this is cool because it comes with Vampire, the novel there, which is awesome. This is a newer acquisition. In fact, I owned this at one point, had to sell it, picked it up again recently. Very glad to have this pseudo-silent film, mostly silent film, in my collection. Very much so looking forward to Vampire. Next up, we have The Phantom Carriage, which is a silent film. Who directed this one? We have directed by the father of Swedish cinema, Victor Sjöström. From 1921. This is a film I've yet to see. I've heard it's marvelous, and I've heard it has a lot of groundbreaking editing effects going on in this film, and a lot of cool special effects for the time. Can't wait to sit down and watch The Phantom Carriage. I'm savoring a lot of these movies, and I'm eventually going to do a silent film collection video because I own almost all of them, save for The Last Warning by Flicker Alley. I've talked about it in the past, but one day I will complete my silent horror film collection and show it to you guys in video form. But I need to watch more of these movies, that's for sure. Including Haksan. Now, Haksan I've seen little bits and pieces from. It used to scare the hell out of me when I was a teenager and when, like, the internet was, finding little clips on the internet, things like that, at the dawn of YouTube and even before YouTube. But either way, this is from 1922, directed by Benjamin Christensen, and it's a witchcraft sort of anthology film that sort of has a lot of commentary about mental illness and the witch burnings and things like that, the Salem witch trials. Haksan, can't wait to sit down and watch this, but I know this one's going to creep into my soul and really freak me out. Next up is The Uninvited. Now, I think this is based on Turn of the Screw. If I'm not mistaken, the old story by Henry James. I think I'm getting that all right. I could be completely wrong, but hey, I'm human, and this is all off the top of the dome. The Uninvited from 1944. I know it stars Ray Milland, and it's a classic ghost story that I've yet to see. I really do need to rectify that for sure. Maybe this October. I always say that, when October's approaching. Maybe this October I'll watch this, but there's only so much time. And but that is The Uninvited. Really excited to have this in the collection. Definitely need to check it out. Here's one I've seen. Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby from 1968. This film is incredible. It's way ahead of its time in terms of the themes it's dealing with, just the filmmaking in general. This film has been ripped off countless times. In fact, I have a story called Baby, tentatively called Baby. It's a short right now, but I'm working on trying over the years. I've been working on trying to extrapolate it and stretch it into a feature film. What I have, I really do enjoy, and I'd love to see it up on the screen at some point. It's heavily inspired by Rosemary's Baby, with a good dosage of Lovecraft in there. But hopefully one day the world will see that story. Either way, Rosemary's Baby is awesome, about a woman who is pregnant with the Antichrist. Another Polanski film, Repulsion. I've heard great things about this psychological horror thriller, but I've yet to see it, so I really can't say much about it, and I know very little about it, almost strategically, because this one is supposed to be excellent, and I want it to blow me away. So that is Repulsion from 1965. Next up, this was so great that they released this, Night of the Living Dead. It's got a little bit of dust on the top. I have seen this transfer. It's remarkable. One of my earliest reviews, in fact, was on Night of the Living Dead. Not my favorite Dead movie by Romero, but it's my third favorite, I will say. Definitely my third favorite. Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, and then the others, I'll rank them one day. But Night of the Living Dead, George Romero, just groundbreaking film in so many ways, in terms of gore, in terms of a black lead character for the time, which he claims wasn't on purpose, but it still broke a ton of ground in 1968. This film sort of marks the end of an era, in my opinion. It's shot in black and white, which was late. You know, it was a pretty late film to shoot in black and white, but Romero did it because he couldn't afford color. But that is Night of the Living Dead. You guys know it. It's a classic for a reason. I grew up watching this. My mother showed this to me when I was far too young on a VHS that I have now, but it's not the exact VHS that I owned as a kid, but it's the same VHS. Does that make sense? No! Either way, one of the first horror films I remember watching in the early 90s, Night of the Living Dead, holds up remarkably well. It is excellent and classic as hell. Next up, we have a couple films here. Japanese horror, Kwaidan and Kuroneko. Now, I've yet to see either of these films. I told the story recently in my unboxing about how I had to get rid of these movies a couple years back, and then I finally picked them up again, and one of them came damaged, sadly. I still need to get a replacement case for it. But one of these, I think it's Kwaidan, is that right? One of these is a short story anthology, and the other is just like a straight-up ghost story, as far as I understand. Kaneto Shindo and Masaka Kobayashi. Can't wait to check these out, but I've yet to see either one of them. Glad to have them back in the collection, though, I'll tell you that much. Here's one I've seen. Great adaptation of The Island of Dr Moreau by H.G. Wells from 1932. This is starring Charles Laughton as the Mad Doctor himself. Island of Lost Souls. This is a brisk 70-minute film. I love this movie. I've only seen it once, but it has that classic early 30s talky feel. Feels a lot like King Kong, in my opinion, in terms of its scope and just classic feel. You guys know how much I love the 30s and how it makes me feel. It's just such a unique decade for cinema, and it's a window into a world that is so far from where we are now, almost 100 years ago, which is incredible. One of the beauties of film is being able to preserve these movies and bring them to audiences and enjoy them to this day, especially when Criterion does their magic on them and makes them look beautiful, just perfect in terms of picture quality. Can't look much better. Love The Island of Dark Souls. Lost Souls. Dark Souls. I'm thinking about the video games. The Innocents. Now, I think I've conflated The Uninvited with The Innocents. Maybe they're both based on Turn of the Screw by Henry James. Is it? Yeah, Henry James, which is on the back here. This film's from 1961. This is definitely influenced by or based on Turn of the Screw. Haven't seen this one, though. The Innocents. Still need to check this one out. Another hole in my horror knowledge, that's for sure. The Innocents. Oh, we've got a little movie here called Houseu! This is one of my favorite films of all time from 1977. So weird, so quirky, so Japanese. Nothing like this exists. I saw this in theaters actually a few years ago with a buddy. It was a double feature of Halloween and Houseu, and it was magical. A magical night, especially to see these two films on the big screen. I love the music in this. I love everything about this movie. Its weirdness, its odd editing techniques, its just otherworldly nature. It is an incredible movie about a group of girls going to this isolated home with this really strange woman who is definitely not what she seems, and things get increasingly weirder. Houseu is a classic. Without Houseu, I don't think we have Sam Raimi as we know him. Houseu is amazing. Also known as House, by the way. But I prefer Houseu! Next up, we have Eyes Without a Face, a French film from 1960 that I have yet to see. In fact, I watched a pseudo-remake of this film called Faceless that was made back in the 80s, and I didn't even know that was a kind of a remake of Eyes Without a Face. I wouldn't have watched it if I knew that. And I wasn't even a huge fan of Faceless, and it's kind of ruined some of the ideas that Eyes Without a Face sort of introduced, but I still need to watch this film. It's supposed to be a classic. Definitely got to sit down and watch this one for sure. As you guys could see, a lot of big holes in my horror Criterion Collection viewing. Next up, this one I have seen only once. I can't wait to rewatch it. 1962, Carnival of Souls. This movie is minimalistic, creepy, eerie, spooky in nature. Used actual desolate, abandoned sets. Very small budget. The director of this film also starred in the movie as one of the main, spooky ghouls. Great makeup, great organ music. I love this movie. It just has a classic 60s feel to it. Remarkable. Carnival of Souls. Can't wait to rewatch this. Next up, The Brood. I don't own enough David Cronenberg horror or David Cronenberg on Criterion. I still don't own Videodrome, sadly. The Brood is my favorite Cronenberg film as of right now. My opinion's always changing, but I adore this film. Such great performances by Oliver Reed and Hal and Samantha Eggar, who is just transcendent in her role as this woman who is being afflicted, this woman with psychotic, I'll just say mental issues, and she is so creepy and over the top. And the finale to this film, if you've seen it, you will never forget it until the day that you slip away into the next life, if there is one. And last but not least, in terms of horror Criterion Blu-rays, that is the classic, The Blob from 1958. 1958, Steve McQueen, not my favorite classic horror flick. I gotta be honest with you, not my favorite 50s flick. I love Cal Tiki, which was sort of the Italian take on The Blob. I've talked about it countless times. Love Mario Bava's Cal Tiki. I enjoy The Blob for what it is and for what it did for special effects, which are still excellent and hold up really well. The Blob isn't one of my favorites, but I do still enjoy it. I don't hate this movie. I just think it's a little overrated. Anyway, that is The Blob. And actually, the last horror film is a DVD. That is Equinox. Again, this one has a cult following. I wasn't too impressed with this. It's one of the early examples of a cabin in the woods type of film. I commend it for that, but I wasn't too impressed with this movie. It was kind of boring. I do want to watch there's a theatrical release and an original version. I forget which one I watched. This is from 1970, so it predates, Evil Dead by quite a few years. So, gotta give it up in terms of what it did for horror, but I wasn't impressed with Equinox. And we have the last stack here, The Fugitive Kind. This is a recent acquisition, actually, from the bookstore. This came in, I got it for I want to say $7.50 after my 50% discount. We priced these at around $15 for the Criterion Blu-rays. 1960 Marlon Brando, haven't seen it, had to pick it up for $7.50. I am not passing on any Criterion Blu-rays. War and Peace, same thing here. Actually, one of the guys who watches my videos, or at least did watch my videos, I'm not sure if you're watching now. If you are, thank you so much for trading these in. These 3, in fact. I'll just put them all up on the screen. We have War and Peace, we have Fugitive Kind, and On the Waterfront. I haven't seen this or Fugitive Kind, but I have seen On the Waterfront. Gotta love this slipcover. Really nice Criterion work here. 1954, a film that has Marlon Brando and Rod Steiger in just iconic performances as union workers, and it's just a classic film of its era and still is prevalent today, to be quite honest with you. On the Waterfront. Next up, this is the most recent acquisition from Criterion, Bruce Lee, His Greatest Hits. I talked about this in an unboxing video. This has all of his films that he made while he was alive, all the complete ones, The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, The Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, Game of Death. It even has special features including, Game of Death 2 and Game of Death Redux, which Game of Death 2 was a film that was pieced together with some scenes that I don't know if they were in any of the other films, but it was like hobbled together from existing footage of Bruce Lee, posthumously. So glad that Criterion is releasing some more action films here. They release a lot of Asian action films, which is awesome, but I wish they would dabble more into American action. That would be great, like Bloodsport. How amazing would that be? I've talked about it before. Anyway, Bruce Lee, haven't even cracked into this bad boy yet. Best thing about this, I sold off my special edition digibook of Enter the Dragon and my Shout Factory 4-film Bruce Lee set and got this for nothing. I made like $5-10. That's the way we do it. Awesome. Watership Down. I haven't seen this film. This is going to take a lot for me to sit down and watch. I know it's going to wrench at my heart. It's going to be a tough one to view. 1978, based on a children's novel, actually, by Douglas Adams. Haven't seen this, but I've heard it's a powerful, moving story about a group of animals who escaped from a lab, like a testing lab, if I'm not mistaken. That is Watership Down. Next up, Gomorrah. This is a modern Italian mafia film. Directed by Bruno, what's his name? Nope, Matteo Garrone. I was going to say Bruno Mattei. Matteo Garrone. I haven't seen this movie. It's super long, 2.5 hours. I haven't sat down and watched this. The cool thing about this is it's not like The Godfather or Goodfellas, where it's an Italian-American mafia film. This is from Italy. I believe it takes place in Sicily. It's a bunch of different stories that sort of converge together, not unlike Matteo Garrone's film Tale of Tales, which is just remarkable. If you guys haven't seen that, it's a dark fantasy film that has a bunch of different stories that sort of come together, converge. Can't wait to check out Gomorrah. I've been saying that since I was a teenager. I've been wanting to watch this since I was a kid, so gotta check that one out. Something Wild, a film that I actually haven't seen with Jeff Daniels, Melanie Griffith, Ray Liotta, and it's directed by a young Jonathan Demme, I want to say before Silence of the Lambs in 86. Supposed to be an adventure, comedy kind of thing. I don't know much about it, though. Something Wild. Next up is Blowout, a Brian De Palma film from 81 that I have seen. This is just a quintessential paranoid thriller by De Palma, who does those so damn well with his split diopter shots that just flood this movie. But they're used to such great effect all the time. Love this movie about a young John Travolta who his character gets in over his head when he hears something that he shouldn't have. It's a lot like The Conversation, which came a few years before this, like 5, 6, 7 years before this. But Blowout is a great paranoid thriller, really expertly done, very Brian De Palma, very cool. Next up, talking about action films that Criterion has released, this is a King Hu film, Touch of Zen. This is from 1971. This is a classic wuxia film that I have yet to see, I gotta be honest, but I know it's supposed to be groundbreaking in terms of the wuxia genre, a genre that we all love, or a lot of us love, especially many of you watching this channel. Without this, we don't have Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, we don't have Hero, all of the great classic wuxia films, wire work movies that King Hu sort of popularized in a lot of ways. Now, A Touch of Zen is one of the main films that Crouching Tiger actually drew from, as far as I know. But yet, like I said, I've yet to see it, so I gotta sit down and watch A Touch of Zen at some point. So glad that Criterion releases stuff like that. More action that Criterion has released. I'm so glad to see Jackie Chan on the Criterion label. That means a lot to me, and he's finally getting some of the respect he deserves from this super big label that is Criterion. Police Story 1 and 2 are just two of my favorite action films of all time, period. Same thing with 3 and 4. I love all of the Police Story films 1 through 4. Haven't seen the newer ones like New Police Story and Police Story Lockdown, but Police Story 1 and 2, I might even like Police Story 2 more. I know most people prefer the first one, but that f***ing baton fight. Ding, 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 ding. Oh, it's just so epic and so well shot. Jackie is in his prime with these films that came out in 85 and 88. Oh, Police Story 1 and 2. Beautiful Criterion that I haven't even cracked into yet. Woo! Throne of Blood. We're rounding out with some samurai films. Throne of Blood, Akira Kurosawa. Have not seen this movie. Gotta be honest. I'm pretty sure this is Kurosawa. Yeah, Kurosawa. It is. Haven't seen it. Have to see it. This is Kurosawa that I have seen. In fact, I haven't seen enough Akira Kurosawa films. It's another hole in my film viewing experience. But Seven Samurai, this is just a timeless story about a band of warriors finding themselves, teaming up for one last job, one last gig to protect this small town from invaders. And, without this, we don't have the Magnificent Seven, which is a direct Western interpretation of. Seven Samurai is just remarkable. It's epic. It's wonderful. Toshiro Mifune is perfect in this movie. He is such a badass. All the characters are distinct, different, unique, and all come together and work together marvelously. So many iconic images. The last hour of this film is just one large battle. It's epic. Seven Samurai, one of the greatest films of all time for a reason. Next up is Rashomon. Rashomon is a film from 1950, Akira Kurosawa, that I have seen. I need to rewatch it. It's been, like a solid 6-7 years. And it's the classic story about a crime that happens, and it's told from multiple different perspectives, which all differ a little bit. You don't know who's telling the truth. You don't know what is the truth. That's the beauty of Rashomon. Another idea that Akira Kurosawa conceptualized and brought to us in its rawest form that we would see emulated and ripped off multiple times throughout the history of cinema. This is the first example of it. As far as I know, Rashomon is genius. And lastly, by Masaki Kobayashi, who directed, was it Kwaidan? I think it was Kwaidan that I showed earlier. Harakiri. This is a great film that I haven't seen in years, and I don't remember much about it because we were drinking quite a bit that night, and it was like the third movie that we threw on. But I loved the visuals. I loved the action in this movie. It is a samurai film. Harakiri seppuku, which is the act of eviscerating oneself when you have let down your master or your country. It's a pretty hardcore thing to do, and it's deeply rooted in Japanese culture, and this film delves into a lot of themes surrounding that, and is just a great samurai film in and of itself from 1962 in black and white. A great film and a great way to end this video. Harakiri. I just want to thank you all for checking out this video of my Criterion collection. Almost all Blu-rays, save for one DVD. I believe this is everything that I own on Criterion. Might have to split this up into 2 parts, not exactly sure. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. I'd love to know what your favorite Criterion Collection release is, so feel free to leave that down in the comments below and we'll get a little discussion rolling. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos like it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well as the little bell for notifications. I also have a Patreon and t-shirts. Both of those links are in the description below. Anyway, guys, I will see you all next time. TheBoredCyborg is out. Peace.